are coming out of caves. Xiefeng. Edited by Care. There is no doubt that the genetic engineering now underway is of epic significance and its future is immeasurable. But when we are complacent and blindly optimistic about it, believing that each moo of a field can produce 10,000 gene of grains and each fruit tree can produce 10,000 gene of fruits, that tomatoes can be bigger than watermelons and peaches can be sweeter than honey, that pigs can weigh 100 kilograms after only half a month's growth and skin and organs can be reproduced, that a new kind of medicine will satisfy people's need for food for 3 months and needed species can be cloned, and that diseases can be eradicated and cancer can be conquered to make people enjoy unlimited longevity. Who would imagine that all the devils are coming out of the caves and that we might be facing doom at any time? Genetic codes are the golden locks that maintain the relative ecological balance and stability of nature, and that prevent the devils from coming out of the caves. But once they are unlocked, the following scenes are not just to scare you because they could happen at any time. You wake up to find that some people around you have grown tails and that their features and voices have changed because they have eaten animal meat from mutant genes. You call a friend who is thousands kilometers away, but only hear chirp chirp noises coming out of your phone. You do not know that your friend has grown feathers and a beak from his mouth because he has eaten poultry or bird meat with mutant genes. You and your guests are happily drinking tea and chatting in the living room when suddenly hundreds of cockroaches, bigger than eagles, crawl in from the kitchen because they have drunk water contaminated by specific genes. You are driving your family in your car when suddenly the road ahead disappears as tens and thousands of hills rise before you. It turns out that potatoes have absorbed the soil nutrients contaminated by specific genes and are growing wildly like hills. You are sleeping soundly one night when you are suddenly awakened by the sounds of walls collapsing and sharp screams. So you open the windows and see hundreds of large rats, bigger than dogs, running through the yard and staring at you covetously. You come home from work and turn on a national television channel to watch the news, but no matter which channel you tune to, you find nothing, not even test patterns. In fact, the country has been infected with a gene that has rapidly mutated and spread, and everyone has gone mad and died within hours. You see plants growing wildly one day and learn that their reproduction and growth rates have grown faster than ants running. They spread over highways and bridges, climb mountains, float across rivers, occupy towns and cities, climb up tall trees and skyscrapers, and enter into caves and buildings, sweeping through to the ends of the earth. In places where they reach, from hill to hill no bird in flight, from path to path no man in sight. The devils are out of the caves and strange things will happen. The mortal world is no longer the one that we have known. People do not look like human, wolves are not wolf-like, and some plants grow wildly as some animals die instantly. At this point, any regrets are much too late. Perhaps people believe that through the efforts of scientists from different places, we will be able to handle the issues of genetic engineering rationally and cautiously and will not act recklessly. We can only hope. The point is that no one can be so sure that they have mastered all the secrets of gene interactions and can guarantee that there will not be gene hackers. Computer hackers can only crack passwords and disrupt programs, but gene hackers could push all of us into an abyss. In order to protect nature's ecological balance and in order to maintain our survival and development, we hope that governments and scientists who are involved with bioengineering will be extremely cautious. It would be better to suspend its development for a century than to act recklessly or to compete with each other for the most radical and extreme advancements. We must avoid catastrophes that are waiting to happen. Democracy is the pursuit of mediocrity. Xiefeng, June 23, 2011. Translated by Transin and edited by Care. 3 cobblers could never exceed Zhuge Liang. Neither 3,000 nor even 30,000 cobblers could outweed him. When critical decisions are to be made, an individual of lofty vision and great strategies can outperform the collective decisions of tens of thousands of the mediocre. Democracy leads to mediocrity and to dead ends. We can illustrate this point by the several ups and downs of Chairman Mao Zedong during early 20th century Chinese history. June 1929. In the 7th CPC National Congress of the 4th Red Army held in western Fujian, Mao Zedong was forced to leave his position of the Frontline Committee Secretary of the 4th Red Army. November 1931. In the Southern Jiangxi meeting held in Yeping, Ruijin, Chairman Mao was mistakenly criticized by the party and was elbowed out of the Central Committee during the Soviet era. October 1932. At the Ningdu meeting, the chairman was excluded aside again and even lost his post of political commissar of the First Red Army. January 1934. During the Second Congress of the Soviet era, he was made a mere figurehead and removed from his position as chairman of the Central People's Committee. The result of these demotions was the gradual shrinking of red bases, and the revolution ushered low tide, resulting in the failure of the Fifth Counter-Campaign against encirclement and suppression. The Red Army was forced to make a strategic shift to start the solemn and stirring move in the war history of mankind, the 25,000 Li Long March. The central base, personally created by Mao Zedong, was destroyed overnight. The whole universe is run in a unilateral manner under the one, unique, greatest creator. It is only when all life in the universe follows the will of the greatest creator that the universe can run orderly and all life can survive and live effectively. In any other way, the universe would collapse. If a cat or dog were not convinced and cried out, "Oh, greatest creator," you have been too autocratic and domineering. The throne of the greatest creator should be shared in turns, and the greatest creator should be chosen by democratic elections from the whole universe. Then all would disappear. As it is with Life Genuine. If the guide were to be decided through a democratic election and if I were not elected as such, then Life Genuine would inevitably dissolve. And if that were to happen, the hopes and dreams of all the Chanyuan Celestials would become impossible to achieve. Napoleon famously said, "Nothing is more difficult and therefore more precious than to be able to decide." It is only when the chief commander makes the decisions that they can be effective and orderly. The sage embraces the one and becomes the model of the world. The greatest creator is the one in the universe. The state leader is the one in the government. The boss is the one in a company. The conductor is the one in an orchestra. This is the model of the world, and sages must comply with it. Whoever creates a business should be the boss, with all big and small decisions being made by or delegated by that boss. Question: what types of people want democracy? Answer: 8 of those types are described here. Irresponsible people, people with mediocre minds, people who scramble for power, people who do things stealthily, people who are selfish, people who shift responsibilities, people without definite views of their own, profiteers from others' labor without sacrificing. All matters, big and small, must be managed by responsible individuals. They should be the ones to make decisions within the scope of their responsibilities. There should be no arguments, debates, discussions, or consensuses. Whenever 2 or more people jointly control anything, the result becomes a resource-consuming process with low efficiency and mutual finger-pointing, with no one ultimately being held responsible. No matter how democratic a flock of sheep is, it can never resist a wolf. No matter how democratic a group of people with mediocre wisdom is, it can never match the vision and insight of a saint. The Life Genuine era does not practice democracy, but each one has their duty and accountability. Like the 8 immortals crossing the sea, each one shows his or her special prowess. Each undertaking is in the hands of one responsible person. Others should cooperate fully and follow the exact requirements of the one in charge strictly and meticulously. If a leader cannot control their rule, but decides every affair through compromises and consolidations, then they are not being responsible and are incapable of assuming their responsibility. They are consuming and wasting everyone's time and energy, as well as their natural and human resources. Democracy always leads to mediocrity, and the wise should guard against that. But what should we do when a leader is self-willed, domineers their power, and exercises tyranny? I do not know. What do you think? 为别人而活的人最自私. The most selfish are those who live for others. Xiefeng, July 3, 2010. Translated by Treasure and edited by Care. The world always sings praises for those who live for others. Therefore, the world is full of lies and deceit. Those who claim to live for others are selfish and hypocritical. They are criminals. Everything and every life must maintain its individual character. This was the intention of the greatest creator when all was created. It is wrong for the peach tree to live for the grapevine instead of producing peaches, as not only does it lose its value as a peach tree, but it also interferes rudely with the nature and freedom of the grapevine. To be a human, one should first cherish themselves and promote their own nature and personality. If not, they disobey the will of the greatest creator. Every molecule must maintain its structure. It must be selfish, or the universe will regress to its random state. Every life must struggle to maintain itself, or they would go extinct. Every person must ensure their own survival first, or the devil wins. It is a fact that very few people live completely for others, but for themselves by nature. Anyone who claims to live for others is lying and is concealing their true, selfish nature. Is there an emperor who lives for the people within his jurisdiction? No, none. Is there a parent who lives for their children? No, none. Did Christ Jesus and the Buddha Sakyamuni live for others? No, not at all. As the guide of Life Genuine, I keep myself busy with the creation of the Life Genuine era. Do I do it for others? Not at all. I do this for my own achievement. As long as the reason for living is spelled out for everyone, we find that people live for themselves. What kind of people claim to live for others? Those who are false, crafty, incompetent, and without a sense of independence. Those who are selfish and deceitful want to impose their will on others, and those who are good at lying intend to control and disrespect others. Those who put their own faults and blame on others want to use and abuse others, and they prefer to interfere with others' lives. Those are the kind of people who claim they live for others. Let everyone live for themselves, and let everyone live upon themselves according to their own nature. In such a situation, the stars will shine brilliantly, the flowers will blossom lively, and the world will be prosperous, diverse, and splendid. Why do I say those are criminals who claim that they live for others? Firstly, they burden the spirits and souls of others because people would feel a great deal of gratitude and a need to serve them, perhaps all their lives. Secondly, they rudely interfere with the nature and freedom of others and make them feel guilt and shame, so it becomes impossible for their natures to bloom. Thirdly, they disturb the program running with Tao, create social disorder, and make lies and deception popular. It is only when everyone is responsible for themselves that they live well by themselves within their own natures and by their own styles that society will be orderly, peaceful, and warm. Only those who can stand responsibility on their own can be responsible for others, and only those who are living for themselves will respect others, be considerate of others, and understand others. Only those who live well by themselves will bring pleasure, joy, freedom, and happiness to others. If you do not know who you are, if you are an imperfect person filled with jealousy, ego, resentment, complaints, anger, and aggression, then what can you possibly bring to others? How can you live for others? If you are unable to even deal with your own issues of life and are unable to smooth away your own trouble and pain, then what can you do for others and how can you live for others? Xiefeng advocates for everyone to be responsible for themselves first, live for themselves first, consider themselves first, live well by themselves first, and not to consider the feelings of others or lose yourself for them. Would it lead to a social disorder? Facts speak louder than words. In the second home life pattern founded by Life Genuine, nearly 100 people live together and everyone lives according to the above standard. Do not bother with others or regard other people's business, and I will not help unless help is asked for. We just consider ourselves first. How has this practice gone on for more than 9 years? Everything is in order. Everyone is happy and free, and we are living in a peaceful and sociable paradise. People who want to confer benefit on society should live for themselves first, and people who want to commit sin should live for others. 知识不是力量. Knowledge is not power. Xiefeng. October 11th, 2017. Translated by Treasure and edited by Care. Knowledge is a combination of the experience and cognition accumulated by our social and productive practical activities. One can possess a wealth of knowledge, which means that they possess the foundation to gain power, but no matter how much knowledge they have, it does not mean that they will ever have power. It is like a library which has abundant knowledge but no power. From the point of storing knowledge, a person's brain is only like a library. Knowledge is power is from Meditation, written by the 17th century British philosopher Francis Bacon, which teachers delight in using to arouse students' learning interest at school. As a result, students blindly believe that as long as they learn their lessons well, which are set by schools, and as long as they grasp that knowledge, they will have the power to achieve their own pursuits and ideals after they graduate. Knowledge comes mainly from our sense organs. However, in the view of the Greek philosopher Protagoras, human is the measure of everything. This was refuted by Francis Bacon, who wrote that it is a great mistake to conclude that our limited sense organs measure all things. In other words, it is wrong to judge and measure all things and all forms from the limited knowledge that our sense organs can provide. Consider a scenario in which a sexy young girl with a middle school diploma is standing next to a more mature, older lady with a doctorate degree, and both are in front of an interviewer. Which one is more likely to arouse the man's rich imagination, alter his mood, and motivate his intense vitality? If it is the young girl, that is because knowledge is not true power, since even beauty can have more power. It is reckless and dangerous to believe that knowledge is power. Not only is it a cognitive misconception, but also a thinking one. For example, to accept that when a son is grown, he takes a wife, and when a girl is mature, she finds a husband, as a life knowledge is bound to bring anguish and suffering throughout their whole lives. This knowledge has led people to make such common mistakes for thousands of years, but which accomplish no good. Some more are. There are 3 forms of unfilial conduct, but the worst is to have no descendants. Filial piety is the most important of all virtues. Lewdness is the worst of all sins. He who does not endure hardship cannot stand up to others. Another example is how education and guidance are passed from parents to their children. Can a parent's knowledge, conduct, and educate their children with both a full range of healthy spirits, minds, and bodies, as well as the ability to lead their own independent lives? Most fall very short. When great changes take place in objective knowledge, but we stubbornly insist on applying our traditional knowledge, we will certainly be rebuffed. Look at various religious dogmas and concepts. As they feel a loss of power, they become reactionary, resist social development, and impede natural human liberation. In fact, prejudices and fallacy are knowledge. What are the benefits of such knowledge? None. Our most powerful intellectual force is the power of flexible and tactful thinking. I believe firmly that Albert Einstein's power came not from his knowledge, but from his thinking. How would I perceive the universe if I were riding on a beam of light? Those who read more and get more diplomas and more experience, but form rigid ways of thinking, have rarely been found to wield much power. Lasting power comes from neither knowledge nor from powerful economic strength and national defense forces, but from sincerity, kindness, virtue, love, faith, and honesty. Sincere deeds have power, kind behavior has power, things of virtue have power, love is a powerful force, honest quality has power, people who keep their words and their faith have power. Conclusion. Knowledge must be learned and accumulated, but knowledge has limitation, danger, and can be reactionary. Never believe blindly that having knowledge is synonymous with having power. Rather than spending your precious time on chasing knowledge, you would be well advised to concentrate your efforts on sincerity, kindness, virtue, love, faith, and honesty, for those are the people who will enjoy lasting power. Meanwhile, take pains to develop your way of thinking by never spending time and effort reciting your former knowledge, or stubbornly judging and adapting to a changing, living reality with dead, prejudicial knowledge. 思维是一种法力. Thinking is a magical power. 写法. 思维是一种法力. Thinking is a magical power. 写法. August 16, 2005. Translated by Treasure and edited by Care. Sun Wukong was pressed for more than 500 years at the foot of the five-element mountain, but after the Tang priest took the post away from the top of the mountain with Om Mani Padme Hum, he was able to break out. It seemed that the weight of the post was more than that of the five-element mountain. So what was the post and how did it have such great power? Some people cannot be crushed by great hardships or difficulties, but when their hopes are dashed, they will collapse easily. Some people who are unaware that they have a horrible disease can live happy lives every day, but once they find out the truth, they become paralyzed from the knowledge. There was a young boy in my village of about 11 or 12 years, and every time he crossed a bridge on his way home from school, he would scream with a pale face, even in the daytime. We eventually discovered that the reason for this behavior was that he had overheard some adults in the village talking about ghosts without heads residing under all small bridges. People's casual words controlled his thinking like a spell. The above are extreme examples. In fact, our thinking is more or less confined by some incantations. Consider the 8 kinds of suffering described in Buddhism: birth, aging, illness, death, encountering enmity and hatred, separation from a loved one, inability to attain what is pursued. The 5 aggregates. These all result from our conventional thinking, but none would exist if we would embrace unconventional thinking. All laws, regulations, concepts, ethics and behavioral rules, authoritative theories and sermons, religious regulations and rituals, scientific theories and methods, and exemplary models and habits are magical powers that constrain our thinking. These magical powers benefit the maintenance of social stability greatly, but they also bind our minds, and ordinary people can never be freed from them any more than fish can be freed from water. Forward to the chapter of wisdom. Xiefeng. Translation edited by Qin. Fame knows no bounds, business opportunities are limitless, learning is infinite, and wisdom is vast. Just as steel becomes harder with an increase in carbon content, people become wiser with the growth of wisdom. Knowledge is acquired, while wisdom is cultivated. Knowledge is a summary of experience. Wisdom is a product of thought. Knowledge represents the branches, twigs, and leaves. Wisdom is the fragrant flowers and abundant fruits. Archimedes used his wisdom to repeatedly thwart the powerful Roman army's advances. Bill Gates, through his wisdom, ushered humanity into the age of networking. The Buddha remains immortal through his wisdom, and Jesus shines with a divine halo because of his wisdom. Oh, wisdom! You are the symbol of strength, the source of wealth, the bridge to the mysterious, and the touchstone for distinguishing truth from falsehood. You are both the fierce storm and the bright spring sun, both the weapon of the devil and the arm of the angel, both the olive branch that transforms swords into plowshares and the smoke of war in times of chaos. A mind without wisdom is like a barren desert, pale and desolate. A mind with wisdom is like a beautiful landscape, full of splendor. Nature is mesmerizing and captivating due to its ever-changing phenomena. People are admirable for their rich wisdom. Seeking wealth is not as valuable as seeking wisdom. Wealth is lifeless, while wisdom is alive. Wealth may disperse when a person dies, but wisdom shines even more brightly upon one's death. Wealth can be stolen, lost, or robbed, but wisdom always accompanies its owner, illuminating their life. Wisdom is boundless and inexhaustible. By engaging in deep thought and research, wisdom emerges from all phenomena. Through meditation and reflection, wisdom can arise at any time and place. Wisdom can transform decay into magic, give wings to thought, serve as the lever to move the earth, and act as the rainbow spanning time and space. It is the warm sun in winter, the cool breeze in summer, the flowers of spring, the fruits of autumn, the oasis in the desert, the willows in the Gobi, the torch rising in the darkness, and the scattered islands in the vast ocean. People become great because of wisdom, broad-minded due to wisdom, rich in depth because of wisdom, and have a promising future due to wisdom. Conversely, people are impoverished due to a lack of wisdom, incomprehensible because of a lack of wisdom, drifting and unstable because of a lack of wisdom, and their life and life become dull and colorless without wisdom. The source of wisdom comes from the greatest creator. Only by following the way of the greatest creator can one cultivate boundless wisdom. Wisdom that benefits humanity originates from reverence for the greatest creator, reverence for life, and reverence for nature. Wisdom that harms humanity stems from selfishness, greed, and lawlessness. The chapter of wisdom is but a small wave on the ocean of wisdom. Like the chapter of Revelations, Its purpose is to inspire the thinking of Chanyuan celestials, guiding everyone into the magnificent palace of wisdom, appreciating the vast gentleness of the ocean of wisdom, experiencing the expansive brilliance of the space and time of wisdom, and climbing toward the highest realm of life and life under the illumination of the light of wisdom. Along the way, let us gather the pearls of happiness and extend our lives to the celestial islands continent of the Elysium world. 石头渡河, crossing the river as stones. Xiefeng. Translation edited by Qinyu. Under the golden sunlight, the sky was vast, with light clouds drifting and a gentle breeze blowing. A great river sparkled as it flowed slowly. To the east of the river lay a boundless sandy beach, barren and lifeless, with only a few foxes coming to drink from the river in the evening. Occasionally, a lizard could be seen scurrying across the scorching pebbles in search of food, and crabs would sometimes crawl ashore, glance around, and then quickly dive back into the water. On the west side of the river, the scene was entirely different. Instead of a sandy beach, there was a lush wetland filled with herds of cattle and sheep, cranes dancing in the sky, frogs leaping about, and fish and shrimp swimming freely. The river was the boundary, and the scenery on either side was as different as heaven and earth, utterly contrasting. Whenever a light drizzle fell, white mist would spread, or when the clouds reflected the setting sun and a rainbow appeared faintly, a young stone on the eastern shore, named Shirtu, would fall into deep thought. He longed for the scenery on the other side and was tired of the lifeless sandy beach where his family had lived for generations. He wanted to go to the other side, to enjoy the beautiful scenery on the west bank. One day, a torrential rainstorm mixed with hail came pouring down from the sky, causing little Shida's back to ache. He could no longer bear it and began to run wildly on the sandy beach, shouting as he ran, "I want to go to the other side! I want to go to the other side!" After the rain stopped and the sky cleared, everything became tranquil again, but the sandy beach was in an uproar. Someone has a wild idea of going to the west side. Poor child, he must be crazy. Ignorance, sheer ignorance. What foolishness! This guy's brain is not normal. He should be sent to a mental hospital for treatment. Whose child is this? How can he talk such nonsense? He should be locked up in prison. We can't let him confuse people with his wild talk. We need to strengthen basic education, or the order of this great sandy beach will be disrupted by such delusional people. Finally, the ancient stone on the beach spoke up. We must hold a grand assembly for all the stones on the beach and invite our esteemed and wise scholars to educate the younger generation and save them from these wayward thoughts. The young stone who wanted to go to the other side was surrounded, and the wise stones began to bombard him with their wisdom. You want to go to the west side? Isn't that just wishful thinking? Have you ever heard of a stone crossing the river? Child, we can't entirely blame you. We elders haven't given you enough basic education. You must understand that if a stone tries to cross the river, it will inevitably drown. The weight of stones is greater than the buoyancy of the river's water, so stones cannot float on water. The conclusion is, stones cannot cross the river. Don't indulge in fantasies. Accept your fate. Stones are not birds. We cannot reach the other side. Poor little Shirtu was completely confused by the well-meaning education. He hung his head, tears welling up in his eyes, muttering only one sentence, "I just want to go to the west side," as he silently withdrew from the crowd to live in solitude. One day, a few stones of the same age came to find him. They also yearned for the life on the west side. They came to the riverbank and gazed at the picturesque scenery on the other side, and began to chatter excitedly among themselves. To cross the river, it's best to take a boat. To cross the river, it would be best if we could fly like birds. To cross the river, it would be best to ride on the back of a crab. To cross the river, it would be best if we hollowed out our insides. To cross the river, it would be best if a strong wind could carry us over to the other